So let's start with legs up the wall, just to start to get our legs warm. Making sure you're straight. Finding a neutral spine. I turned it off. It's up to you because you can get neutral pelvis there, but you can also go over there next to. Or if you're worried about the building, you could be here too.
There's room here.
There's room right here too, Linda. This is a spot.
No,
If you don't want to be filmed, it's up to you.
Oh, film.
Aw, what about the people in Kazakhstan that love us?
Sorry, you guys.
They keep asking for Linda.
I just gotta take them away.
Sorry.
So again, checking, is my nose in line with my navel? Is my navel in line with my pubic bone? Are my hip bones level?
Lovely colored mats.
Yeah.
I know, I love it, but it's a good, it's like a Manduka
Yeah,
commercial.
it's a nice mix.
Donuts.
And wiggle where you need to find a neutral pelvis so that we're not imprinting our low backs. It's sometimes nice to take the stick onto your hip flexors and just see if your hips are level, see if your hips are equal distance from the wall. Maybe finding that connection of a mini bend in the knees. So front thigh, back thigh, calf to shin, dig your heels in, drag your heels towards the sit bones. So with you, let's find straight.
I know.
There we
Said
go.
that to Marcia in the movie for just perfectly centered.
The stick doesn't lie. And then once you find a straight spine, see if you can find from pubic bone to center of the heels straight. This is unbelievable. Yeah, that's good. Interesting, okay? Try and get your big toenails, baby toenails level. And then eventually, you can keep your stick there with your hands, you can ditch the stick, you can take your arms overhead, you can cactus your arms, whatever you like. Or just finding your breath. Start with a big exhale, and then once you're empty, belly's gonna fill, ribs are gonna fill, chest is gonna fill, and then you're gonna empty chest, and you're gonna empty ribs, then you're gonna empty belly. So belly fills, ribs fill, chest fills, chest empties, ribs empty, belly empties. We're not looking for our deepest, fullest expression of the breath right off the bat. We're looking for gradually, organically letting the breath grow stronger and deeper. There should be zero tension physically or mentally. It should always be an effortless effort. Now that you found the rhythm of the breath, begin to count. Belly 1, ribs 1, chest 1, exhale 1. Belly 2, ribs 2, chest 2, exhale 2. Going to come around with blocks, and you want to try and get your big toe mounds, baby toe mounds, inner heels, outer heels, all pressing evenly into that block. This feels really good. I'm thinking not only the breath moving up and down the spine, thinking about wrapping the breath from back to side to front. So first the low back fills, then the love handles fill, then the belly fills, then the mid back ribs fill, the side ribs fill, the front ribs fill, the back shoulders traps fill, the armpit chest fills, the sternum collarbones throat fills. So as the breath moves up the spine, it wraps from back to side to front. If you grabbed an elbow or you have something that's not symmetrical, swapping the grip, doing the reverse side. Remember, if it feels too intense on the hamstrings or it tugs into the back, at any point just bend your knees. We're going to start to find that connection through the backs of the legs. So I want you to dig your heels into the wall. I want you to think about the front of the ankle moving towards the heel at an angle. I want you to think about the backs of the knees pulling forward to the fronts of the knees. Bending the knees as you do that. And then I want you to think of a stick where your hip flexors are, and I want you to move that imaginary stick towards your butt. So this is what we're calling the zigzag connection of the leg. So the front of the ankle moves towards the heel, the back of the knees moves towards the kneecaps, the hip flexors move towards the butt. Think calves moving forward to the shins, think front thigh to back thigh, and then imagine you can take your hamstrings, pull them towards the front thighs, and then slide the hamstrings from the backs of the knees towards your butt. Keeping a nice bend in the knees, and then maybe, just maybe, you can float your heels off the wall. Keeping that mini micro bend. If that feels like too much, bring your heels back to the wall as you continue with your waves of breath up and down the spine. Really avoiding the imprinting of the low back. Trying to keep the feet level. And then notice your knees. Are your knees still pointing over the crown of the head? Are your knees and ankles still in line with the hips? And if your knees are rotating in, you've got to think of a slight external rotation of the upper leg. If your knees are pointing out, you've got to think of a slight internal rotation of the upper leg. Everybody's a little different. Everybody needs something a little bit different. Just learning what you need, what your body tendencies are. Check out your heels. Are you starting to get wrinkles in the heels? Maybe for some of us, we can even lengthen the heels to the point where they start to disappear behind the ankle. Let's take 5 more breaths here.
Better to leave your heels if you feel like you're losing any of those connections, though, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of the next stage. So sometimes it's better to take a step back to really find it. And then move your arms over to bring those arms back around. You're going to drag your heels down the wall, trying to hold on to the block, eventually taking the block into your hands. Everybody should have 2 sticks. We're going to place 1 stick behind the backs of the knees, place the feet on the wall, and then we're going to place the other stick in the hip flexors.
Are you scooting away?
No, stay as close as you can. If you can't get your feet very low and squeeze the backs of the knees, then move away. But visualize that you've got a block between your butt and the wall.
Feet together?
Feet are together, knees are together, thighs are together. If you need to wiggle away from the wall, wiggle away from the wall. Lift just your toes up, but feel the question mark of the foot rooting into the wall. Lengthen the inner heels. And then take your hands to the stick where your hip flexors are and move that stick towards your butt. So it's like kind of a diagonal angle, right? You're not going to sort of the fold, but you're going to sort of the middle part of your butt. Squeeze the thighs, squeeze the ankles, squeeze the knees. Think inner thighs dropping the block, inner heels dropping the block, outer heels squeezing the block, outer thighs squeezing the block. And then keep that connection of the stick moving to the hip flexors. Take your hands to the stick at the backs of the knees and very gently pull the backs of the knees towards the kneecaps as you continue to move your hip flexors towards your butt. So again, we're finding the 2 directions. So just taking a couple breaths with your hands on the knee stick and then taking your hands back to the hip flexors, finding the hip flexors. Good. Until you feel like you have an evenness. That you're getting both of those lines moving in 2 directions. And then think about the front of your ankles moving towards your heels. So we're literally trying to find a zigzag through the legs. And then we're pushing our feet into the wall. We think front thigh to back thigh. We think calf to shin. And then you can physically take your hands to the backs of the thighs, pull them towards the fronts of the thighs, and slide your hamstrings from the back of the knee towards your butt. And just really memorize this moving the flesh, the muscles from the backs of the knees towards the butt. As you continue to move the knees and the hips in 2 directions, you continue to move the ankles towards the heels. Is everyone kind of getting that? Is that kind of making sense? Okay. So if you
Feels good.
it's great.
I find it releases my back.
Oh, big time.
Okay.
Yeah. This is one of the key things. So one of the top 5 injuries in yoga is low back stuff, right? And it comes from a lot like this with straight legs as opposed to bent legs or arching as we come into it. We see that a lot when we go to drop in yoga, right? And so learning to release the hamstrings from a bent position just takes it out of the back. Lets it go. Yeah. Alrighty. Blocking your hands. If you can't grab it, I'll grab it for you. Have it at the widest width. So you're holding onto your block at the widest width. Good. And then you're going to bend your elbows, keeping your elbows a shoulder's distance apart. And you're going to see if you can bring the block back so that it's on the crown of the head. Good. So eventually one day, sort of the skinny edge of the block hits the floor. Yeah. Eventually the skinny block comes. You try and get the entire circumference of the palms to root into the block. So eventually, so your elbows are bent. Your elbows are shoulders distance apart, and you try and get the skinny edge of the block at medium height to come to the floor. Skinny edge of the block to the floor. Yeah, this is the skinny edge. Good, nice. And then check out your elbows. Are your elbows a shoulders distance apart? Sometimes they go too narrow here. So then visualize you've got a stick between your elbows. Your inner elbows, straighten your head. Right there. There we go. Your inner elbows are trying to drop an imaginary stick. Your elbows are even. And then imagine a stick in your elbow creases and move that stick towards the elbow point, right? So just like you've got a stick in the backs of the knees, we're moving the backs of the knees towards the kneecap, move the elbows towards from the elbow crease to the elbow point. Good. Keeping your feet exactly as they are, keeping the connections with the knees and the hips, you're going to exhale to pull the thighs in closer, trying to get your feet away from the wall. And then you're going to inhale to take your feet to tap the wall. So you're going to exhale to pull the thighs in as close as you can. You can lift your low back if you can, and then you're going to take the feet to the wall. So exhale to take the feet away from the wall, inhale to take the feet to the wall. Does anyone not get what I'm trying to get you to do?
Can we imprint our...
Yeah, totally imprint your low back. So sometimes we're doing the energy of neutral pelvis, but we're not holding neutral pelvis. So where do you think you're holding tension?
In the traps.
Yeah, so tell me, you show me what you're going to do to release it. Yeah. Now give your head a shake. Can you shake your head for no? Yeah, bingo. Good. And you can move away from the wall a little bit if you need to. So you're going to think about using your ribs. So floating ribs come to one another and to the floor. And then we think about rooting the back rib cage to try and bring the thighs in. And then we're going to bring the thighs in and we're going to hold those thighs in away from the wall. If you have to bring your feet back to the wall, you do. Good. And then just breathe in here. Distance apart. You're going to exhale to take your elbows towards your knees or your ribs. You're going to inhale to take your block down towards the floor. You're going to exhale to take your elbows towards your knees or your ribs. You're going to inhale to take the block back to the floor. Good. Does anybody find this easy?
No.
Good. And we're all keeping a nice neutral neck. Thighs together. Thighs, knees, ankles together. Good. So exhale, elbows to ribs. Inhale, fingers to the floor. Keep that connection of injecting the hamstrings. Don't let those elbows go wider than the shoulders. Keep that shoulders distance. Let's do 3 more. Keep the connection of the knees, the hip flexors, the ankles, and the elbows. And then once you've done those 3 more, just place the block beside you, remove your stick, straighten out your legs, and just take a little break. Why use 1 stick when you have 2? Let's just go 5 breaths here, opening up the legs, letting the blood and oxygen flush the joints. A little bit, you're going to interlace your fingers over the shins, and you're just going to rock your legs from side to side. Keeping your knees together, keeping your feet together, but thinking of your 3 sticks and the zigzags. Fronts of the ankles towards the heels, backs of the knees towards the kneecaps, hip flexors towards the butt. Keep those connections, allow yourself to do circles with the knees, keeping the thighs and the ankles together to warm up those groins. Swap the interlacing, change direction with your circles. And then again, rocking from side to side, thinking of your imaginary sticks. Looking for the right level of stretch for you. Then letting your feet come onto the floor, we're all going to roll off to the right. You're going to make your way over here, and we're going to check this out. So I want you to come over so you can see quite well. So first thing we're looking at is we want our feet at hips distance apart, feet at the wall, and then we're going to bend the left knee, or well, you guys will start with the right, but I'm starting there. I want to make sure that I can find a neutral pelvis here. So if you're not as tall as me, even with my height, sometimes I'm going to have to do this, right? Then I want to make sure my foot's right at the wall. So pubic bone, hip bones are level. Again, moving away from that, pushing into your elbows, lengthen the back ribs away, keep your neutral pelvis, bring the strap to the sole of the foot. So heel's a nice way to do it, if you can do it. If it's easy, if it's not easy, don't bother. But if you can strap the heel, that does give a really nice connection. Does anybody know why we start here and not here?
Stack the joint.
Yeah, does anyone know why? Stacking the joints is so key. Creates the structure, right? So number one, it's way easier to find a neutral pelvis, stacking the joints or doing less than stacking the joints, right? And then number two, just getting things in alignment allows the ligaments and the muscles to release, right? So we find it straight and then we can go further. It just creates less tension, all right? So we want to think about that, digging the heels in. We want to think about the backs of the knees moving towards the fronts of the knees, the ankle moving towards the heel. That's why the strap at the heel is sometimes handy, right? We think neutral pelvis, we find the hip flexors. And then I want you to think this is lifting our thigh up. So the front of the thigh is going to the floor, right? The back of the thigh is lifting back into the body. So essentially it's going this way and this way. The inner thighs are dropping the block, the outer thighs are squeezing the block. So we're using the muscles to really support that femur. And then we can inject the femurs. Outer trochanter, right? So you got your femur, you got the outer big fatty bone of the femur is your trochanter. So your outer trochanter is the outside of that. I find it in my body kind of where the indent is on a woman's body, like right here where the thigh kind of meets the hip, kind of in the back, and I think about those 2 points really pulling to one another. It's tricky, but one day you'll find it, I'll help you. And then you can go a little bit deeper. You could walk your hands up. Some of us will be able to take the foot, right? Just depending. Making sure that we're not getting that place where our necks are jammy, but we always want to be able to shake our head for now. So first one, we're just going to go for intense leg stretches. We're going to hold it, then we're going to find a bend in the knee. We're going to really think about those zigzags. We're going to really think about ironing this down. And it can be really helpful to do this, okay? And then once I find that ironing, I just think about really lengthening my calf this way towards the heel, the back of the hamstring this way, and you'll see how much that freed up already, right? My neck is happy, right? So I've either got the strap or I've got the foot. We're then going to take the strap into one hand. This hand is going to be our hip flexor stick, and it's also going to move this thicker bit of the thigh away from the armpit, right? This has got to be a pretty decent, almost like an external rotation to keep it neutral, and then we just take this leg over this leg without anything else changing, and then we're going to bend our knees on both legs. We're going to think about injecting, right? So this is moving this way, this is moving that way, and then we can reconnect it, right? If you can grab a heel here, it's really nice, right? For those of us that can, and then we're going to bring it back to center. We swap the grip, so we're either holding here or from the inner heel, whatever we're grabbing. We bring our hand here, we think of that hip flexor being a stick, right? We take it out to wherever we can take it out without losing this hip, right? So as soon as I do this, it may look epic, but I'm really not getting anything out of it. I'm losing my pelvis, I lose the stretch. I'm never going to have the stability to do any of the, trickier poses, right? So as I bring this out, I think externally rotating this thigh, and I have to think internally rotating this thigh to keep this knee neutral, right? It's just how it works. And then I bend, I inject, I think about the zigzags, and then I can extend again and just open it up, right? This is essentially triangle, right? This is essentially pyramid, this is essentially revolved triangle, right?
Yeah.
We're holding a neutral pelvis here because it's going to create a mind memory, which you have the muscles, but you don't necessarily have a neutral pelvis, right? We're then going to take it back here. We're going to bend the knee. We're going to bring it into faithful number 4 pose, right? Think neutral pelvis, yada, yada, yada. Here you don't have to nail the neutral pelvis. You can lose the neutral pelvis, but what's important here is the foot, the distance here. This is a lot trickier on the knee, right? So think if I was in a lunge, the straight shin, this is not a straight shin, so I have to be quite good at yoga to move away from the straight shin, if that makes sense. I don't want to say quite good at yoga. I have to have really warmed up my hips and have very happy knees to do that. So most of us have to really focus on this. We can then start to bring this in, but there's always that resistance. This is a fantastic place to inject, right? So I can really use my hands to pull this in. Sometimes I like to use a block. Thank you. To get that same connection, right? So I'm like as soon as I do that, I'm like so freed up in the hips, right? And then I can think of the same thing here. If my leg is quite close, okay, so it has to be to the point in my world where I can use my elbow to lift it. So if I'm here, see how my elbow doesn't lift it? If I go for it, see how my whole neck and shoulders change? But if I'm here, my elbow can lift my femur. That's a really good indicator of whether or not you do the next step or you just hang out here. If I was doing the next step, I could have a strap sort of around my ankle. The same leg, so it's my left leg, left arm. I'm doing my tight side, which is smart. I always do my right side, but it's naughty. And then you can bring it down, right? I don't think anyone can grab the big toe, but if you can, it's really good for bunions. What we're looking for here is no wrinkles, right? And the distance here depends, right? So you could come up and have less strap, or you could be down and have more strap. Up is more shoulder, down is more hip. Does that make sense? So if you're like, oh, I feel like working my shoulders today, then I would come up, right? And be head off the ground and work my shoulders. And it can still be a decent hip, but less. And then I slowly bring this down, right? Making sure this guy's not a leaf blowing in the wind, but stable. And then I can start to straighten this out if I wanted to, right? And then I can work the head back. So this is more hippie, this is more shouldery. Does that make sense? Okay. And then to come out of it, it's really important because these knees are very valuable. So we're going to bend this knee, we're going to make sure we don't get any wrinkles, we're going to bring it back in. Eventually we can bring the hand around, release, bam, bam, bam. And then everybody's going to come out of it, make sure we're pivoting at the hip, not the knee. Open up the back of the leg, and that's a great warm-up for our standing poses. Sound good?
The initial placement of the block, it's just under your thigh.
Under the thigh.
Right.
It's a guide. What it's going to do, because we're so good at front to back, we've really gotten good at that, but we're learning how to counter that and pull this guy in. So what that does for me is it just reminds me to lift it. It also forces a bend in the knee, right? And it just brings an awareness there to slide it. So I think front thigh to back thigh, I think calf to shin, I think of this guy coming back to meet this guy, and then I think of the vice. Right? Because we've really learned the vice on the heels, inner heel dropping the block, outer heel squeezing the block to find that, right? Now we're moving in this direction. Then we're finding this guy, this guy, this guy.
So are you pushing down the block?
Your front thigh is pushing down on the block. What's the back of the thigh doing?
Like that.
And lifting off the block. Yeah. So when I think of injecting the hamstring, I think about pulling it in and towards my butt. Right? So I'm really thinking about trying to lift the back of thigh off the block and the front of the thigh to the block, which is, again, what are we trying to do? Build perfect scaffolding for our bones, right? Think of the muscles as the scaffolding. So if the scaffolding is only pushing one direction, eventually it's going to push one direction. And fair enough, we have our calves moving forward, but we're just, why not learn more?
She's been away.
You can do it anywhere.
Because where did you do it? You just like
I sometimes do it here, right? I sometimes do it here. Like you can do it anytime. And then you can like literally sometimes I do this.
You really get that.
It's really nice. Yeah. Alright, so when you're ready, you've got a block. Your feet are at the wall. Let's take the block underneath our left thigh, just because that makes it easier for me, dyslexic-wise. And then have your feet at hips distance apart, and then find a neutral pelvis. And I know that it's like weird to push your front thigh to the block and take your back thigh away from the block, but remember how hard it was to have inner thighs dropping the block and outer thighs squeezing the block, and we are all nailing that, right? So this is just more. So I can do it long ways because I'm really tall, but for a lot of people, if it's long ways, the right hip lifts. So most of us would have it shorter, and it's underneath the left thigh. Yeah, thank you, Barb. So I'm gonna bring the right leg up. So what's most important is that you can keep a neutral pelvis. You've got the block underneath your thigh, not your knee, so it's quite close. So it's right here. Yes, and
How do
then
you keep this down?
bend your knee. Yeah.
And just my toes are on the wall? or-
Move in. Yeah. So ideally your foot's at the wall, your heel's on the floor, you're gonna have to bend your knee. Yeah. Good. You can have it at the whatever. What's that thing called? Baseboard. But I had it at the floor.
What?
Neutral pelvis. It makes you bend your knee, which isn't a bad thing, right? And then keeping the neutral pelvis, you're going to take the right foot into the strap. And then you start no deeper than 90 degrees.
I think I don't have.
Strap. I'll grab you one. I've got. And then really find that nice neutral pelvis. Find the thicker bit of the thigh moving away. Find the stick in your hip crease. Move it towards your butt. Find the stick at the back of the knee. Move it towards the kneecap. Find the stick at the ankle. Move it towards the heel. You're looking for that neutral foot, whereas if I put a block, then your big toe, yeah, there we go. You feel that difference in the ankle, okay?
But I can still do that while finding the, like, inner hip.
Right, so that's more, if you're at a 90, then it should be almost level. You're not quite at 90, which is good, you've got a bent knee. But does that make sense? So we're not doing too much on the Achilles, and then find this guy. And then think about this energetically rooting here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then back to the knee to kneecap, hip flexor to butt. Inner thighs dropping the block, outer thighs squeezing the block, inner heels dropping the block, outer heels squeezing the block. And then you can move past 90 if you like, now that you've set up the structure. If the leg wants to come closer to you, you can. If you wanted to use the block at the back of the thigh, you could. If you wanted to use your hands at the back of the thigh, you could. All good little tricks.
I find this really distracting. Move it up.
This way.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a good connection, and it's a connection you don't have. So it's distracting because I think it's good.
It really reminds you to lift up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. So it's because you do this really, really well, and I'm always trying to get you to bend your knee a little bit, right? So you think of this lifting in. Because especially with people with really bendy hamstrings, as we get older, what we've seen on yogis is they get a tear here. Yeah. That's why I'm always saying do this, right? So I'm trying to get you to energetically do it. Does that make sense?
Someone who was teaching while you were away how to straighten standing poses. My hamstrings were sore.
Yeah,
I'm not naming
I
names.
didn't make you do anything, let's be clear.
Laura likes to kick butt.
It's so bad.
With her nice, gentle, soft voice. And then bend your knees generously. Really find a bend, right? And then go to the hamstrings and slide those hamstrings down towards the sit bones. And then think about that action, countering it with the calves sliding towards the heel, and straighten out the back of the leg. Not all the way, we always want a mini micro bend, but then use that to straighten. Is it kind of coming? Are you feeling like you're starting to get it?
I think so.
Getting it? Yeah. It's not easy, right? Moving your hamstrings is not easy. You're not going to get it for a while. And that's okay, right? If we think about it, we will eventually get it. So to you, we want to watch this guy here. Let's just measure. Yeah, so this femur pulls in.
Okay.
So if that left hip bone is lifting up, then you want to inject your femur. Yeah? There we go. And lengthen the quad towards the knee. Does that make sense? So if I let this go, I'm going to pull this in and root this down.
Yeah.
Just stability. Yeah. And then I'm going to let it go. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard.
But with the foot on the wall, it's helpful. These
Yeah.
kind of like rooted too.
Yeah, it's using the leg, right? And this sometimes helps because it makes you find front thigh to back thigh, which keeps this level too.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah. And then taking both straps into the left hand, right hand becomes the hip flexor. So, yeah, right hand becomes the hip flexor stick, moves the outer thicker thigh away, good. And then slowly taking that right leg over the left leg, nice and slow. Ejecting that right femur. Rest whenever you need to rest. If it's too much, you can always bend the left knee, and that makes it way gentler. If you're sliding away from the wall, it's because you're not rooting your shoulders into the floor, you're not rooting the back ribs into the floor. Breathing here. And then generously bend the right knee. Think about generously bending the left knee and then pull the back to the hamstrings towards the butt. Really find that connection. Think about your vice on your heels, vice on the thighs, front thigh to back thigh, and then use the action of the hamstring and the calf moving in two directions to straighten out the leg. Keeping that nice neutral pelvis and pull that entire leg bone back into the hip. Breathing. Yeah, you're doing it. Good. It's particularly tricky if we're bendy. There you go. You're getting it. You're feeling it, eh? Yeah, I can see it. Now see if you can think of it here. This is like a circle. Nice. And then we're going to bring that leg back to center. We're going to swap hands. Left hand's going to come to the left hip flexor, keeping that nice and stable. Think of the mini bends in the knees. It's a little bit of an external rotation of the right leg and almost like an internal rotation of the left leg, but it doesn't move to take that right leg out to the right. Pressing into both feet. And just take it to where it goes without losing the pelvis. So to keep that left hip down, it's left femur pulling into left hip, front thigh to back thigh on that left leg, so you can think about rooting into that block, but at the same time energetically lift the back of the thigh away from the block and slide the back of the thigh towards the butt. Once you come to your spot, generously bend your knees, really thinking about injecting those hamstrings, front of the zigzags of the leg, front of the ankle towards the heel, back of the knee towards kneecap, hip flexor towards butt, and then see if you can straighten it out a little bit more. Noticing the moment that that left hip lifts and really commit. Yeah, you feel it. So even if this guy doesn't go down, stability is more important than mobility. Think of the butt of the old guy in Sex and the City. That's my visual when I do this stuff. The Sex and the City, you remember when she's dating the old guy and it shows his butt walking away? Think of that, and then go to your outer trochanter's and bring it together. He's very mobile, but maybe not so stable in his hips. We need to keep our butts. So again, go to those outer trochanter's, and then think about those outer trochanter's coming to one another. Nice. And the pelvis, and you are straight.
Really?
Not your head though. Almost right there.
The other way.
Yeah, it's funny how that's, hey, but you're looking straight at the sky. You have to rotate it. Nice, now you're working, hey? There we go. Nice. Outer trochanter's. Yeah, the outer trochanter connection is huge in the standing poses.
I'm starting on that side.
These are hard for you.
Yeah.
Those are really hard, yeah.
Yeah. Especially this side.
Yeah,
So nothing there.
yeah, it's coming though. And your knee's gonna love it. For all your lotuses, when you find it, it's just so perfect.
Yeah, my very so much happier.
Yeah. It's amazing, hey? Yeah, that neutral pelvis is such a game changer. Strength, right? Different kind of strength. And then nice and slow, let's bring that leg in. We're gonna bend the left knee. We're gonna bend the right knee. We're gonna externally rotate that right thigh to come into number 4 pose.
Let go of the strap.
So bring it in. You can keep the strap there if you think you're going for the bind. Bend the left knee, bend the right knee, really thinking about the external rotation. Start in number 4 pose. Start with the neutral pelvis. Feel the hips level. See if you can lengthen your spine away from that neutral pelvis. Have your strap on your right foot if you feel like you're going to go for the bind. And then keep the hips equal distance from the floor, equal distance from the armpits. Make sure you're straight and then come into thread the needle. So interlacing your fingers behind the thigh, or you could use a block like I used before, where I used the block to iron the backs of the legs down towards the butt. Getting rid of the wrinkles in the heels. Making sure the neck and the shoulders are relaxed. And here again, you can imprint the low back, you can get rid of the neutral pelvis, but we want to keep the hips equal distance from the armpits, equal distance from the floor. We want to think about lengthening the pubic bone away from the navel. Inner knee to outer knee. So this knee comes that way, and we got that, which is perfect. And then the left femur is in line with the left hip. If it's skewed, I know that your hips aren't level. That's a nice little trick for teachers. And you can, so you see this a lot.
Oh, I see.
Or you see that, right? And so at a glance, you can tell hips aren't level. I should lift this up. Lift it up. Yeah. And then think about your inner thighs, particularly your inner right thigh, moving away from the imaginary block between the thighs. So the inner thigh is moving to the outer thigh, and the outer thigh is moving to the inner thigh on both legs. Inject the hamstrings, pull the femurs in. And then if it's very easy for you to lift the right thigh bone, so the right femur with your right elbow, then the right arm could come behind the head and reach for the strap. So then the right arm comes behind the head and reaches for the strap. Only if that femur's there, so you're not going to do that. And then what's important here is the distance. Remember, we have to keep the shin straight like a lunge. So that's important that we keep the angle between the calf and the back of the thigh. And then if we have that, we keep our hands, one arm behind our head, the other hand starts behind the thigh. If our knee is not floating like the wind, then the left foot can come to the floor, and gradually you can start to straighten that left leg. And we keep lifting that right knee up towards the sky. Michelle, is the right hip up? It's not a neutral pelvis, but think of you sticking your hip flexor and move that stick towards your butt. There you go. So you think of that stick in your right hip flexor, you move it towards your butt. If it's too easy, you shorten your strap. Really thinking about your inner right thigh, dropping a block and lifting away from your belly. And so if you want more, that left foot comes down and goes towards the wall. If you're happy where you are, it stays where it is. Fair enough. Listen to your body. Your intuition knows way more than your not intuition. I think it's good to keep it there. Yeah. Too much. So way too much. Yeah. So go back to the original pose. Yeah. So put your hands there. So you see how this is, well, it's close actually, closer than I thought, but it is too much. Yeah. What I want to see eventually is this knee more in line with the ankle, and this elbow would be able to very easily push here without that shoulder lifting. Yeah. And then to come out of it, we want to go back to the supports. We bend the left knee, we take the left knee to the left ankle, so that the knee is not blowing in the wind. Then we release the hand. Everybody meets and thread the needle. We take a couple breaths there. And then release, come into number 4 pose. Let the foot come onto the floor for everybody. Pause there in number 4 pose. And then we're going to draw the right knee towards our navel to untuck. We're going to interlace our fingers on the backs of the thighs. We're going to slide the hamstrings down towards the butt to straighten out that leg one last time. Slide the hamstring towards the butt. And then bend that knee, bring that foot onto the floor. Put the block underneath the right thigh. Right foot is firmly pushing into the wall. I like my heel on the ground because it kind of forces me to bend my knee. And then take the strap over the sole of the left foot. Start by stacking the joints. So this is a super, super technical class. Maybe too technical, you know what I mean? But if you're getting it a little bit, that's great. We're all getting something. So you just get out of it what you get out of it. If you learn one little thing that you didn't have before, that is great. So hip has to be level. So you're going to bend your knee more, so you got to move towards the wall more. Yeah. Whoops. That's good.
Inside of my evil twin.
Those hamstrings are really coming, hey? So start at 90. Yep. Line this. Think of your zigzags. So you got to stick in your hip flexor, it's moving towards the butt. You got to stick at the back of the knee, it's moving towards the kneecap. You got to stick at the ankle, and it's moving towards the heel. Keep those connections, keep your hips level, and then you can go deeper if you like. So do you feel that this hip is higher than this hip? So back off, take this leg away from you. All the way away, way away. Yeah, there we go. And then let's find this. So now you feel this is still lower, right? So you're still going to have to work that down. So let's move, let's see, you want this guy this way, that'll help. And then bend this knee as much as you need to. Inject your femurs and get this guy down. So now your stuff is to keep this guy down.
The right one.
Yeah. So now if you feel it, like if I took this, and this is neutral pelvis, you're so open, we want to be able to target places that we're not open. Okay, does that make sense? So now your hips are level. Good. We feel that because the stick doesn't lie. This can even come down a little bit, but we're happy with this, right? And so then without losing that and without imprinting your low back, then you can start to straighten. So with you, it's not about actually bringing the leg to you, it's about thinking about the leg away from you and keeping this down. Okay. Does that make you see how much harder it is, right? Yeah, harder's good in everybody's case, really. As hard as you want it to be, you can always do less. And then generously bend your knee, you can bring it past the 90, generously bend your knee, and then really think about injecting the hamstrings on both legs, moving the calves away, and then straighten without changing the pelvis.
Maybe keep them right there.
Yeah, always a micro bend. Because which way is the back of the knee moving? Yeah. We get so open in the backs of the legs that, you know, you just want to keep those knees safe, right? So for me, I always think micro bend, always. People tell me to straighten my leg and I ignore them. I just don't see the point. Gymnasts and dancers straighten their legs and they also go to the chiropractor once a week. No, I'm going to let go and you're going to keep it. Nice. And with you, you think about pushing this towards your heel. Yeah, there you go. So with you, it's really not about bringing it in. It's about leveling this out and creating resistance. Good. Because again, your sister, you guys are so bendy in certain areas, right? Pretty gosh darn close. Very similar. Good. And then taking both straps into the right hand. Left hand becomes that stick in your hip flexor. And again, you can bend that right knee anytime you like. This is your tricky side. So how are you going to get that hip up? Think about it.
This way?
Yeah, just it needs to lift a tiny bit. Yeah. You pull this in and drop this down. Good. And then nice and slow, you're going to take that leg, left leg over your right leg without your pelvis changing. You're going to think about the front of the heel, front of the ankle moving towards the heel, the back of the knee moving towards the kneecap, the hip flexor moving towards the butt. You're going to inject the hamstring towards the butt. You're going to slide the calf towards the heel. It helps to generously bend your knee and really find those connections. And then move at the same time on both legs. So the back of the thigh is trying to lift away from the block and slide towards the butt. And then see if you can find the outer trochanterics and bring them to one another. Nice, you're getting it. It's easier on this side. Relax those shoulder heads like they're sandbags on the fronts of your shoulders, melting those shoulders down to the floor. And then eventually the leg almost straightens out, but we keep that mini micro bend. Pubic bone lengthens away from knee ball. Let's just go 5 more breaths here. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, you can bring that left leg back to center, nice and slow. Find that little mini bend. Swapping hands so the grip comes into the left hand. The right hand becomes the stick on the hip flexor. Don't let that right hip bone lift. It's a little bit of an external rotation on that left thigh, and it feels like an internal rotation on the right thigh to keep the leg neutral and the hips level as you slowly start to take that left leg out to the left side. And then once you come to your deepest, bend your knees, inject your femurs. Really think about rooting that left hip bone down by pulling the right hip bone down by pulling the right femur in. Find your outer trochanterics, draw them to one another, Apana Vayu, and then inject the hamstrings, lengthen both calves to open up the backs of the legs. But again, there's that mini micro safe bend. And now the pelvis wants to squish the left side more. So think of a panini sandwich underneath your pelvis. Don't let it squish underneath the left pelvis more. Externally rotating the thigh. Yeah, foot follows. Good. Excellent. Noticing how that right hip wants to lift. Don't let it. Really breathe into it. You could find another generous bend if you wanted to. We're just here for a couple breaths. Reconnect if you wanted to. Now we're just here. Other connect is the really nice stand poses. Now straighten the neck and relax the shoulders. Good. And then bringing that leg back to center when you're ready. Bend the right leg, bend the left knee, make sure you're pivoting at the hip and not the knee to come into number 4 pose, keeping the strap there if you think you're going to use it. And then just pause in number 4 pose. Am I straight? Is my pelvis neutral? Can I lengthen away from my pelvis? Do I have any wrinkles in my heels? So feel your hips and tell me what's going on. Yeah. So you injected this just a tiny little bit, right? Good. Once you find your neutral pelvis, everything is as it could be, should be, then you can go into thread the needle. And here's a nice place to either use your block or your hands to iron those hamstrings towards the butts. And BPS Iyengar has said on like numerous occasions, the number changes usually a little bit, but he says that if you can nail the intense leg stretches, he has a very long Sanskrit name for it, but it's the same pose with a big fancy name. Anybody know the fancy name? Anyway, he says if you can really learn that you can master 85% of yogasana. So it's kind of like the elixir. Inner knee to outer knee. So your inner left knee towards your outer left knee. Think about a vice on the thighs, think about a vice on the heels. Think about injecting your femurs, especially the right femur, because that left hip wants to sink lower. Think about sticks on your hip flexors. Think about sticks on the backs of the knees. Think about sticks, ankles moving towards heels. No wrinkles in your feet. Good. So if you're there and it's very easy for you to adjust your left femur with your left elbow, then your left arm can come behind the head and you can grab the strap or you can work towards the foot. And you want to try and do both sides the same, so you kind of eyeball the length of the strap and you go for the same length. Then once you have the strap, you can take your hand behind the thigh or you can hold the foot. And then you just hang out. It's important to keep the shin where it is and not let the calf move towards the back of the thigh. And it's important to inner knee to outer knee on that left leg. So lift that up. Yep. Think of the stick in your left hip flexor, move it towards your butt. Think about the stick in the knee, think about the stick in the elbow, think about the stick in the ankle. And then gradually, when you're ready, you can straighten out that right leg. Bringing the heel to the floor and then sliding the heel towards the wall. And if you wanted more, you'd go shorter strap. If you wanted less, you'd go longer strap or then yeah, which way did your flexor supposed to go? Yeah, of course, that's better. Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's injecting, right? Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Find all those same leg connections. Make sure you're breathing. You're not going to have evenness on the two sides of the torso, but see if you can find it. So if you know, like the right side. Just a bit. You can go up to the side. Let's go 5 more breaths before we come out of the bind. So remember, we don't want that left knee blowing like a leaf in the wind, so gradually we're going to bend the right knee, we're going to get back into a thread the needle type position. We're going to make sure the ankle is supported, when the ankle is supported, the knee is supported, and then we can release the arms and go for a regular old thread the needle. A couple breaths there. And then we can bring that foot to the floor. We're going to draw the left knee towards our navel, uncross. Interlace our fingers, left hand on top of right, to the back of the thigh. Slide the back of the thigh towards the butt as you straighten out that leg. I'm just breathing here. Big, beautiful breaths. And then bend that knee. Let's draw both legs in. We're going to interlace our fingers over the shins. And again, just rock. And then let the rocking turn into circles. Swap the interlacing, change direction with the circles. And then again, rocking from side to side. And then let one foot come down, let the other foot come down. Let's just do a little Baddha here. Soles of the feet clap, knees apart, find a nice neutral pelvis. Place one hand between your belly and your ribs, one hand between your ribs and your chest, and see how many connections you can find on your own. Can you find your feet? Can you find your thighs? Just check, 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 check. Have you lengthened your spine away from the pelvis? Are you straight? And so, number 4 pose, thread the needle, and Baddha Konasana are basically our warrior twos and our side ankles, right? And so let's look at that because we're going to do warrior 2 first, because it helps to keep, like, sort of create a mind awareness to keep our knees safe in the other standing poses. So let's think about lengthening from inner groins to inner knees. Let's draw the outer knees down towards the floor. Let's draw the outer knees towards the outer trochanter, and then let's pull the outer trochanter to one another. Keep pushing into the big toe mound. I like to take my toes a little bit away from one another. Think front thigh to back thigh, think calf to shin. Just the right amount. Think inner thighs dropping the block, so the inner thighs are heavy to the floor, outer thighs are lifting away from the floor. Think sticks in the backs of the knees, moving the knees towards the kneecaps. Think sticks in the hip flexors, moving the hip flexors towards the butt. Think sticks in the ankles, moving towards the heels. See if you can inject your hamstrings. So this, even though it's such a basic pose, can be as deep as you want it to be. If it's too deep, you grab support, you use less muscles, it can be less. But once we find all those muscles, it's really interesting. You find your effort, you lift your gaze, and 9 times out of 10, your knees are level. Even though one hip's tighter, if we use them energetically the same, we can even them out so we're not walking around in circles. And everybody's knees are level now. Good. And then let it relax, just let everything go. Just let it be soft. Then use your hands to draw your knees to one another, and then we're going to roll off to the right side. Right arm becomes a pillow for our head, left palm in front of the chest, nice inhalation, arms strengthen to come up. Right, so tabletop position, tuck your toes, hands to the knees, to lift your butt, keep your knees nice and bent, and you can either come up with a straight spine, or you can come up one vertebra at a time with the knees bent. Knees bent is key. And then let's come over to me so that we've got a really good look at my mat, because there are a couple really common injuries in standing poses. Standing poses are really an intermediate advanced pose, right? Because you can really F yourself up. So does anyone know the most common injuries? Knees, big, knees and backs. So the biggest one is that front knee, right? That's why we do so much thread the needle, because so many people do Virasana 2 like this, and this is really gross, right? Especially if I'm doing a flow class and I'm doing this, so you think of my butt, right? So then what I think of is number 4 pose, or I think of Baddha. I lengthen from inner groin to inner knee to outer knee to outer trochanter's come to one another. Outer thighs squeezing this way, inner thighs pulling this way, and it just rocks my knee right over the ankle, and lengthen from inner groins to inner knees. I draw back from outer knees to outer trochanters. I'm rock solid. So that's our first injury. The second knee injury is this. So if I'm not using my foot properly, right, and I drop into that inner knee, that's the second knee injury. Less common, but it is important to think of that. So inner thigh dropping the block, pushing into the baby toe edge of the foot. Here you're probably going to have some wrinkles in your heels, but we try and get rid of it. It's also why I always start you at the wall, so you learn to use your legs properly, right? Externally rotating here, internally rotating here, blah, 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 blah. So that's for the knees. Now, for Virasana, it's less trouble with the back, although we see this a lot, which can be jammy in the back. So we think flush of the butt down, zip the belly up, right? As we come into our triangles, this is where the second most common injury comes, is when we don't line up this with this, but you see this all the time, right? And that will eventually hurt the back, right? So those are the ones to avoid big time. So let's start with Warrior 2 first, right? So everybody, let's put the right foot at the wall, baby toe edge of the foot at the wall. We then take the left heel in line with the center of the right arch, okay? That just helps us to get the external rotation and track the knee, and then we're gonna walk that foot into the center of the room. Now just for fun, point your toes in. Does your knee track your foot, right? Point your toes out. Does your knee track your foot? Obviously, we want our knee to track our foot, right? So then when we bend our knee and straighten our knee, we're making sure that the knee is going the exact same direction as the foot. If it's doing this or it's doing that, we can find the connections, but if we can't maintain it, we take a shorter stance, right? We just have to wait until those hips warm up. This is a great warrior as long as your knee is stacking. We also don't want the knee to go over the ankle. I should have covered that when we were all here, but I think we all know that one. All right, so coming into it, find it, bend both knees so you know you're safe. Lengthen from inner groin to inner knee. Draw back from outer knee to outer trochanter's. Outer trochanter's connect. Front thigh to back thigh, calf with that right leg. Maybe you can go a little bit deeper, right? Now the pelvis doesn't move at all. So you gotta watch those knees. Good. So what's important here is that we don't sacrifice the knee to get the shoulders, right? So you use your mind's eye or you use your real eyes and you don't let that knee move. Keep the pelvis, you think neutral pelvis to keep the pelvis, and then you just twisted the rib cage. So the right front ribs move back, the back left ribs move forward, and you can bring the arms up. For us, right hand will probably hit the wall, left hand will probably reach into the room, and then we turn the gaze over that left hand. We look down to make sure the knee hasn't moved. Zip the belly, move the flesh of the butt away from the low back, and then find your sticks. So back of the knee towards front of the knee, front of the ankle towards heel, front of the hip flexor towards the butt. Zip your belly, beautiful. Front ribs towards back ribs. And it's gradually a twist, so continuously, without the pelvis changing, you think about the front right ribs moving back, the back left ribs moving forward, and then we even out our shoulders with that. We think skin of the armpits lifts up and slides forward. We think shoulder heads back. But what's important is we keep the knee stable and safe. Knee doesn't move. Good. And then from here, since we're nailing it, everybody looks fantastic, let's just take it right into a triangle. So we're going to straighten out that right leg. We're going to take the left hand into our left hip flexor. We're going to think about pulling that left hip flexor into the body. Think a mini micro bend in the knees to keep that left knee safe. And make sure the left ribs are coming over the left thigh. Maybe the left hand can come down to the shin, or it can stay on the fly, or it can stay on the hip flexor. And then we make sure that we don't get any internal rotation on that left knee. We can straighten the legs a little bit if we like, and then we think about twisting at the ribs. So the front right ribs move back, the back left ribs move forward. Eventually that right arm could come up, we find a neutral neck, and then eventually the gaze could come up. But the knee continues to track the foot, the left ribs are over the left thigh. Nice, and we don't have any bulging, which is nice. Good work, everybody. If it's hard to turn the head, bring your gaze back to forward, root the skull back a little bit. Yeah. Try and get rid of any wrinkles, and then turn the gaze. Outer trochanter's connect, outer trochanter's connect, outer trochanter's connect. Inner line of the leg lengthens from inner groin to inner knee lengthens to inner ankle. Outer ankle draws back to outer knee draws back towards outer trochanters connect. We think about an external rotation of the front leg, we think about an internal rotation of the back leg. And then let's bring our gaze down and let's see if we can bring it right through into Virabhadrasana 2. So the knee bends, the knee arrives over the ankle, beautiful. And then we're going to straighten, we're going to pivot, we're going to heel toe it in. And then we're just going to stand into Tadasana, either feet together or feet at hips distance apart. Bend your knees, get your shoulders back, armpits forward. Close your eyes and just breathe. Big, beautiful breaths. So good breaths. When you're ready, left baby toe edge of the foot at the wall, front heel, so your right heel in line with your left, middle of the arch. We keep a straight line from big toe to heel, and we walk that right foot in. We find the right distance so that we can bend our knee is tracking our foot, and our knee eventually arrives right over our ankle. And then we just create the foundation. So I think of a little mini bend in both legs by moving the backs of the knees to the fronts of the knees. I lengthen from inner groin to inner knee. I think inner knee to outer knee. I draw back from outer knee to outer trochanter. I get my outer trochanter's to connect. Inner thighs dropping the block, outer thighs squeezing the block, front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin, inject your hamstrings, lengthen the calves to the heels. Beautiful. Then zip your belly, move the flesh of the butt down. One more time, find those outer trochanters, and then legs are concrete. They don't move. Twist at the ribs. Right, so the legs stay where they are. Don't let the right knee pop in. And then once you find your ribs, you can find your arms, and then you can turn your gaze. And then if you wanted to go deeper, you could just lengthen that inner groin to come a little bit deeper, but don't forget to lift the back thigh up. Inner thigh to outer thigh. Good. Hip stack shoulders. Good. And then really rock that pelvis so the pelvis stays where it is. It may not be neutral, but you think neutral pelvis to keep it stable. And then it's at the ribs. The front left rib cage moves back. The back right ribs move forward. Then you square your shoulders to match your legs. You think armpits lifting up. You think shoulders relaxing. Shoulder heads back, armpits forward. And then gradually the gaze turns forward. Keep breathing. Good. Nice, you guys. And then from here, we can take it right into our triangle. We're going to straighten out that right leg to almost straighten. Right hand can come into that right hip crease. We're going to pull the right hip crease into the body to keep the right side of the torso directly over the right thigh. The hand can slide down if you like. The left arm can come up if you like. Think about twisting at the ribs, and then eventually the gaze can follow. Equal length on the two sides of the torso. Knees still straight, and then think outer trochanter's, outer trochanter's, outer trochanter's. It helps to find that stick in the right hip flexor and pull it back towards the butt. Really finding that thicker bit of the butt and trying to roll it as you pull the outer trochanters to one another. The whole inner line of the leg lengthens, so we lengthen from inner groin to inner knee to inner ankle to outer knee to outer trochanters. Outer trochanters come to one another. Zip the belly, flesh of the butt down. Right butt pushes forward towards right groin. Left thigh moves front to back. So right outer thigh moves forward. Front left thigh moves back, and you get this sweet little hip stretch in the middle. You don't have a neutral pelvis, but to keep it rock solid, you think neutral pelvis. You think of all those muscles that you found or introduced to, you keep them. And then let's bend the knee over ankle, come right through Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. Pivot on the front foot, heel toe to step it in. Palms forward, shoulders back. Bend your knees a little bit. Close your eyes and breathe. Focus on your body from the inside. Focus on your breath. So if you're in the apprenticeship program, standing poses once a week, minimum. All right, let's try it with or without the wall. All right, so if you're using the wall, use the wall. If you're not using the wall, don't worry about the wall, and we'll bring it a little bit into the room. All right. So, depending, and we have to be really honest with ourselves, if we know that we're nailing the feet, the legs, the hips, it's not a challenge to stack our knee, then when we come into it, we push into the back big toe mound and move the heel back, okay? This is deeper, but it's putting the knee in a more compromised position. So if we know we're not nailing it, we're worried about our knees, we just keep the baby toe edge of the foot straight like it was at the wall, or we keep the wall. Both are great, okay? So coming into the center of your mat, you can still use the wall if you want to. Everybody's gonna have the right foot moving to the right and the left foot moving to the left, and you're facing forward. So let's all face the same direction. Whatever works. All right, right foot goes to the right. Martha, I think Martha's right. Martha's right, you girls turn around. Yeah, there you go. Right foot goes to the right, left foot goes to the left, okay? Pivot on the front foot so that the front foot moves to 12 o'clock from big toe to heel. Make sure the front heel is in line with the back arch. Push into the right big toe now to move the right heel back if you know you're nailing the foot. Then bend your left knee to bring your left knee directly over your left ankle. Zip your belly, move the flesh of the butt down. Think front thigh to back thigh, think calf to shin. Bice on the thighs, bice on the heels. Inject your hamstrings. Good. Fire up the legs and then rotate the body. Bring your arms up, turn your gaze. Really think right ribs back, left back ribs forward. Knee stays stacked over the ankle. Keep zipping your belly. This one you gotta watch just a little bit. And really think outer trochanter pulls back. Nice. If you want to straighten out that back leg, you can. Now think about a thigh between your blocks. A block between your thighs. Left outer thigh is going to squeeze the block. Right? And then think front thigh to back thigh on the right leg. Inner line of the leg lengthens, outer line. And then from here, we're going to keep all those connections. We're going to straighten out that front leg. We're going to think about pulling that left hip flexor in, and we're going to bring the left arm down to wherever it gets to, keeping the left torso over the left thigh. Left outer thigh, left butt moves forward, stick in the hip flexor, right thigh moves front to back. Zip your belly, connect your outer trochanters. If you've got a neutral neck, you can turn your gaze. Think of the sticks in the backs of the knees, think of the sticks in the ankles to find that stability. Lengthen the inner line of the leg, draw back on the outer line of the leg. Really zip, zip, zip those bellies. If you're worried about your knees, bend them. You only have two, and they're very precious. There's a tendency to bulge. Tickle, tickle, tickle. There's a tendency to bulge on that top side. So think about bringing your right rib cage towards your left rib cage and lengthen. So you feel how that's shortening and that's lengthening. That's one. Watch that. So move your ribs down into the hands. There you go. Close? Yeah. With you. I want to start like synchronism on this further back. So instead of going for the foot over here, try and line this up on the thigh. Okay, so this, hold this. Let's go 2 more breaths. So straighten this leg. Yeah, so keep this back. Okay, there you go, that's better. So now let's get more for this. Okay, good. And then gaze comes down. Bend your knee, come back through warrior 2. Make sure the knee's not wobbling in and out. And then straighten that front leg, pivot on that foot. Walk the feet in just a little bit. Baby toe edge of the foot is straight. Make sure your heels are in alignment. Bring your hands onto your hips, pull your elbows back, bend your knees a little bit. Think of a stick where your hip flexors are and lift up as you start to come forward. Just come down halfway. Lift the shoulder heads, lift the elbows. You got sticks in your elbow creases, lift the elbows up. Make sure your ears are with your shoulders and you can shake your head for no. So that mini micro bend really keeps the knees happy and safe. You can bend your knees more if you need to. Try and find a nice straight spine. Lift up into the back of the skull. Pull the elbows to one another. And if you want to go deeper, you can. If you're happy where you are, stay where you are. If you want to bring your hands onto the floor, you can. If you want to walk your hands back and bring your head between your feet, you could. And the legs stay straightened a bit, but you're energetically thinking of bent knees. And they're a little bit bent always. One day the thighs create a 90-degree angle with the floor. The front of the thighs, that's perfect, right here. And then think of a stick at the backs of the knees, moving towards the front of the knees. Think about a stick in your hip flexors, moving towards your butt. Think about a stick at your ankles, moving towards your heels. Find that resistance. You can always put your hands on blocks if you wanted to. If you want blocks and don't have them, let me know.
Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
My thighs happy with it.
Your thighs are good. Now, where do you think your elbows should be?
Like that.
Your right elbow has to come in a little bit. You're looking for, like, you could come up into a headstand and you're a perfect tripod.
And then when you're ready, you're going to bring your hands onto your hips. You're going to bend your knees a little bit. You're going to think nice straight spine as you come all the way up, lifting your elbows. Good. You're going to release the arms. You're going to pivot on that right foot. The right big toe heel is going to be 12 o'clock. Heel is going to be in line with the back arch. If you're playing that way, you push into the left big toe mount to move the left heel back, making sure inner thighs are dropping the imaginary block. Then the right knee over the right ankle. Inner groin to inner knee. Inner knee to outer knee. Outer knee draws back to outer trochanter's. Both outer trochanter's connect. Zip your belly, flesh the butt down. Really thinking about your outer right thigh, moving towards an imaginary block, squeezing into the femur. And think about that left thigh moving front to back. And that really helps to find the pelvis. Find the sticks in the hip flexor, draw it back. And then bring your arms up, and without the legs moving, rotate at the upper body. So the front left ribs move back, the back right ribs move forward. So we get as much of the twist as possible without losing the knee. Shoulder heads back, armpits forward. And then really honor the two sides of the torso, lengthen them evenly. So one of the big connections here, so watching this knee, is thinking about inner thigh dropping the block, outer thigh particularly close to the outer trochanter squeezing the block. So you create a lot of resistance on that front leg. And then when we're ready, we're going to try and keep that resistance, and we're going to straighten that front right leg up without the butt moving back in dream world. And then we're going to think about that right hip flexor pulling back as we take the right side of the torso right over the thigh. So keep your back. Yeah, and that's your stuff. It's just started to happen recently. So there's a wall behind you. Yeah, everybody feel that difference today. So you are starting it, so maybe to move this back and this forward, if that makes sense. Just a little bit. Yeah, perfect. It's really nice. And then check. From your feet up. Think about lengthening from inner groin to inner knee. Think about drawing from inner knee to inner ankle, then from outer ankle to outer knee to outer trochanters, connect. So slight external rotation of the thigh, you feel that difference, right? See how the weight changed to the foot. If there's more weight on the big toe edge of the foot, likely you're internally rotating the knee. If there's more weight on the baby toe edge of the foot, likely you're externally rotating the knee. One thing that helps you is to bring this heel in. Yeah, just makes it easier for the knee to track the foot, because it's tricky for you. That's your tight spot. Gosh, it's come a long way. Think of an external rotation of the front leg, an internal rotation of the back leg. Gently zip your bellies. Touch your ribs. Think about a stick coming to the hip flexor. You feel how you're shortening here. And then you lengthen from hip flexor to armpit, and then you think ribs down. Yeah, there, you feel that difference here.
Yeah.
So that's fascial now, right? So this is like a railway, like meet up with tons of fascial lines. So if you can find the two sides of the torso even and lose this, you get this, which is way better. Does that make sense? Yeah. So come up a little bit and let's try and nail it. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. So this pulls back. Yeah, and now come into it. This pulls back. This pulls back, and then this whole side. Yeah, there. Okay. You feel the difference on that hip.
Yeah.
So that's it's just it just takes into the fascia, which is obviously what we're looking for.
Yeah.
We do it a lot in the allergy series. That's
Yeah.
how we teach it to start with.
Yeah.
Let's just go 5 more breaths here. Remember, you can always come in and out anytime you need to. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, you're going to bring the gaze down. You're going to bend that left knee. You're going to come through here, Virabhadrasana 2.
Then you're gonna straighten that front leg, you're gonna pivot on that front foot, you're gonna heel toe it in until we find the feet either together or hips distance apart. Knees are a little bit bent, palms face forward, shoulder heads back. Close your eyes and just breathe. Big, beautiful breaths. So let's try and do that one more time. You can do 5 to 10 breaths on each side, your choice. You're going to do Virabhadrasana 2, so warrior 2 to your triangle, from your triangle to your warrior 2, okay? You can do a wide-legged forward fold in between. You can do hands on the floor, bam. You can do tripod, you can come up into a headstand if you really wanted to. You can keep your elbows on your hips, you can interlace your fingers, work your arms to the floor. You could do reverse namaskara, right? I don't really mind, whichever one you want to do. Okay, and I can help you with that. So start with your right foot towards or on the wall, left foot into the center of the room. Just see what you can do. I'm going to watch. So one foot steps up, other foot steps out, find your rotations. Remembering front heel tracks to the middle of that arch. 5 to 10 breaths each pose. Zip those bellies, flesh the butt away from low back. If you're not sure, you can always ask. Just seeing what you can remember. Good, so we come to triangle. So think about this squeezing the block and this dropping. Yeah. Nice. Just roll it. You have to tell me, right? What's how hard you want to work, right? Yeah, and that's it, right? Doing your little checklist. So warrior 2, triangle, warrior 2. So you gotta really watch that one. Yeah. So 2 things, external rotation, and going to underneath. So think number 4 pose, think thread the needle, think Baddha Konasana, quite strongly on this leg. So this guy's gotta track this guy. Yeah, it's really important. Wide-legged forward folds. You come straight, you pivot, you make sure the ankles and the heels are in line because usually our feet are one bigger than the other for a lot of people. Maybe towards the foot is straight, hands on the hips, bend your knees. Come forward with that hip flexor connection, heel connection, either, again, any variation you want. So zip your belly. Yeah, bingo. Good. Try and find your ears in line with your shoulders, rocking, no turtlenecking. Yeah, there you go. And turtlenecking if it works. Lift up in the back of the skull. Yeah, so with forward folds, it's actually like you're trying to lift away from the floor. Yeah, exactly. Then you can do a little mountain pose in between. Nice, Shelly. Do you want to spot for headstand or are you good?
I'm good. I haven't done tripod.
We'll also do that on Wednesday. ask me. It's a little cheap. See how that's heel to heel? If you try heel to arch, it's a lot easier.
Okay.
It's just easier to keep the knee straight. It just gives you a little more room to work. Just little tricks. Nice, Martha. You're really controlling that hip. It's gorgeous. If you can, yeah, exactly. If you can, this guy's going to come up to here. Good. Make sure you can shake your head for no. If not, what you got to do, inject your arm bones a little bit. So you push into this and bring this heel back, 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 and you get the IT band. So when you're teaching, that's only for people that really use the leg,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, it would be straight, which is safer. When you're doing this, you got to think head out, back, and down. Yeah. Nice, really finding that baby toe edge of the foot. Nice. This is gorgeous. You're kneeling it here. You feel it, hey? Yeah. Your torso's really gotten long. You could, if you're being super picky, get a little more space between this bottom rib by pulling this hip flexor back and then lengthening this rib out. There you go. And you get this train back a little bit more. Does that make sense? And then I'm going to be your outer trochanter's, which is a tricky one to get, right? It's easier to find it in Baddha Konasana, so really think about finding the Baddha Konasana. So again, doing those sides evenly. Nice memory, you guys. So that's a pretty wide stance there. You could even go a little shorter on your stance, just a tiny bit. Do you see what I'm seeing? To get your shin straight? Yeah, bingo.
Yes.
Yeah. It's harder.
Well, that's okay. I didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not understanding.
Yeah.
People to sit there.
Stick in your hip flexors, stick in the backs of the knees, sticks in the fronts of your ankles. Make sure you can always shake your head for no.
And even in this stance, you're still trying to do that.
Inner thigh to outer thigh. Yeah. It's really, this is basically Baddha Konasana but bigger.
Right.
Right? So it's like this and like this, right?
Almost.
Yeah. Inner thigh dropping the block, outer thigh squeezing the block. Front thigh, back thigh, calf, shin, all those same connections. Just one side each, yeah. Some people are doing 10 breaths, crazy people. And they're just finding that mountain pose when you're there and just hanging out, well deserved. Just breathing here, smooth, even breaths. All right, so we're gonna take our mats back to the wall, cozy, cozy. Does anybody have any questions about those? We're good? All right, so practice is really work that stuff because we've got to memorize, right? So next, we're gonna come to the wall. We're gonna take a stick into our hip flexors, okay? Some of us are gonna have to generously bend our knees to get it there. We'll hold it here to start with. I'll just keep this here. And so stick in the hip flexors. We're gonna think about coming over that stick, think shoulder heads back. When I find my belly, I like to take this side. Not everyone's gonna get there. To my elbows, elbows are wide. I think shoulder heads lift. And then with my belly and my ribs touching my thighs, I'm just gonna work on straightening out those legs with a mini micro bend. Lifting up into the back of the skull, thinking about lifting my ribs and my belly off, and some of us are going to be able to lift the toe mounds up, but keeping that mini micro bend in the knees. The whole time, you're seeing that I keep my ribs touching my belly. All right, so once we've done it once with the feet at hips distance, we can try it with the feet together. So stick in the hip flexors, we come forward. This is usually where you grab the second stick. I don't want the second stick digging into your back, I just want it to encourage a straight spine. So some of us are going to be here and straighten, right? Some of us will be able to be here and straighten. But really think shoulder heads lifting, skin of the armpits moving forward. So when you're ready, start with your feet at hips distance apart. Pardon me?
Your butt is on the wall.
Yeah. And knees are quite bent to start with. And then you push your sit bones into the wall. You make sure your knees are over your ankles. So some of us have to use more outer thigh squeezing in. Some of us have to use more inner thigh squeezing out. Not too far. No, I think you're good. Yeah, there you go. And like I said, I don't want it digging into your back. So if it feels like it's digging, you're not ready for it, right? And then see if you can feel the sit bones at the wall. Really think shoulder heads lifting, skin of armpits. Get rid of the wrinkles. Try and get your head in line with your spine. Yeah. And then once you find it, it's just a matter of trying to get your belly and your ribs to touch your thighs. And then it's a matter of sliding your sit bones and your hamstrings up the wall. So Laura, outer thigh squeeze in just a little bit. And so some of us so hips distance, remember, is 2 of your fists. Good. Good. Lifting to the back of the skull, lifting the shoulder heads, back of the elbows, moving to fronts of the elbows, back to the knees, to front of the knees, stick to butt. And then just gradually lengthening to wherever you can lengthen with a nice straight back. So feel how you're starting to lose it and it's starting to dig in. Yeah. Nice. Inject those hamstrings. And if you're feeling solid, be honest with yourself. Lift your feet, but don't let your big toe mounds lift more than your baby toe mounds. Lengthen those inner heels. No wrinkles in the inner heels. See if you might like to hang out there for another 5-10 breaths. Lift those shoulders, lift those heads. And then once you've hung out for those 5-10 breaths, bring your feet back down, bend your knees a little more generously, and then come up with a nice straight spine. Good. And then take a little rest. You could even lean into the wall to feel what a true straight back feels like. Find a neutral pelvis, think shoulder heads to the wall, armpits away from the wall. Don't force it, but if your head can come to the wall, that's great, because that's your ears over the shoulders. If that feels yucky in your neck, then we could put like a little pillow behind your head. Hang out. Breathe. Then just memorize what that straight back feels like. Think about the engagement of the belly. Think about the engagement of the ribs. And then if that was enough for your hamstrings, you don't want to go any deeper, then you do it again with your feet at hips distance apart. If you want to keep going deeper, you can bring toes and heels to touch. So again, we got our 2 sticks. Bend your knees generously. If you're doing hips distance, find true hips distance. If Get one guy in your hip flexors, get one guy in your elbows. Elbows are a little bit wide. Come down so that your ribs and your belly touch your thighs. You may have to bend your knees more. Lift your head, lift your shoulders. Remember what it was like to have a wall behind your back. And then maybe think about pulling your fingers towards your hips. Think about injecting your hamstrings as you slide the sit bones up the wall. Just see where it gets to. Once you arrive, with feet together, it's a lot harder to lift the feet. But if you can, go for it. You have to really find the backs of the knees moving forward. You're going to hang here as long as you want to hang here, not worrying about what anybody else is doing. And then when you're done, you're going to come out and you're going to find just a neutral spine on the wall. The belly's going to the belly and wrist contact. Yeah. And then when you're done, just come out, bend those knees generously to come all the way out. And then just place your sticks to the side. Find your Tadasana using the wall. All right, so we're going to take that information, we're going to pretend that we have our sticks still there. We're going to have our blocks on our mat like so. We're going to take our right heel to the wall, our right foot's going to look at 2 o'clock, and we can do it this one together. So right heel at the center of the mat, right foot goes to 2 o'clock, left heel comes in line with right heel, and it goes to 12 o'clock. We square our shoulders, we square our hips, we're going to bend our knees. I think this is a ballet position. Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. And then once we find the shoulders squared, the hips squared, the ribs connected, we walk that left foot into the center of the room. We bend our knees, we think about a stick on our hip flexors. So we have to pull the left hip flexor, left thigh back, left femur back to square those hips. And then keep the bend, think of all the connections, think about a stick in your elbows and your back, and start to come forward with nice bent knees. And then we're going to bring either our fingertips or our fingers to the blocks. Sometimes we have to bend a lot. Square the hips. Think about serving coffee off your pelvis, and then slowly start to straighten out your legs, trying to keep those pelvis nice and stable. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we're working the left hip flexor back and up. We're working the right femur in, left femur into the pelvis, back to the knees to front of the knees, fronts of the ankles towards heels. Trying to maintain as straight a back as is humanly possible for us. We could start to go lower on the blocks. We could bring our fingertips to the floor. We think about injecting the hamstrings. We try and get the ribs and the belly to touch the thigh. And then if the ribs and the belly touch the thigh, and the forehead touches the shin, but we're maintaining a neutral spine. Remember, we want to keep our low backs happy and safe. And if we're really bending at the mid-back, nice, and we're straightening our legs, our low back goes. So 2 things to keep the back happy, trying to keep as straight a spine as possible, and a little bit of a bend in the knees, even if it's just energetic. Very nice. Breathing. And you can bend the knees, try and inject and lengthen to go a little deeper if you like. Alrighty, so we feel these hips, let's bend our knees, yeah, bingo. And then, yeah, perfect. You feel that difference? Good, high IT bends. And then here, don't let any of this move, and then you can just think about injection to straighten, just without losing the back. Especially with you, because the hamstrings are tight, so you're susceptible to low back stuff. Not tight, but they need to loosen a little bit. They're great, but we all have stuff we're working on. Let's see if we got 5 more breaths here. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, again, bend your knees, inject your femurs. Maybe you can bring your hands onto your hips to come up with a nice straight spine. Feel like you're ripping the mat in 2. And then I like to step my back foot forward to meet my front foot, palms forward, shoulder heads back, close your eyes, and just breathe. Big, beautiful breaths. And then when you're ready, we're going to take the left foot to the wall. Left foot's going to go to 10 o'clock. Right foot's going to go to 12 o'clock. Heels in line. Square your shoulders, square your hips. Get everything in line. And then walk that right foot in. Try and match your distances. Bend your knees and then think stick at the hip flexors. Try and even up that stick so the hips are equal distance from the wall. Think stick in your elbows and your back. Lift up into the back of the skull. Lift your shoulder heads up. Keep a nice bend in your knees as you come forward. Think of all the leg connections we've been obsessing about. Once you arrive with your fingertips or your hands on the block, bend your knees, inject your hamstrings, pull the right hip back, right femur back, left femur forward, and then lengthen the legs as much as is comfortable for you. Lift up into the back of the skull, zip your belly, keep lifting the ribs, and then see if you can start to come forward. Keeping your ears right in line with those shoulders. And we wait until the belly and the ribs touch the thighs, and then we walk the hands forward. We kind of think down dog, and then we can start to think about bringing the forehead towards the shin, keeping that nice straight spine. And we really start to feel which side's tighter. So very good. So now we lengthen. Yeah. Find extension, no tension in those arms. So essentially you're looking at down dog arms. Nice. Injecting those hamstrings, front thigh, back thigh. Finding that right hip flexor and pulling it back. Lengthening it back. No wrinkles at the back of the neck if you can help it. Find the hips and lengthen here. Yeah. So inject those arm bones a little bit and find that's the space right there. You feel that? Yeah. Superficial back line, right? Let's see if we've got 5 more breaths left in us here. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, you're going to bend your knees. You can bring your fingers back to the blocks, fingers back to the hips. Feel like you're pulling the feet apart to bring it all the way up with control. Nice little bend. Step it forward. Tadasana. Eyes open or closed. Feet together or apart. Really trying to find that nice straight posture. Ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. Zipping your belly. Flesh of the butt moving down. If you can close your eyes and balance, do. And then just really focus on your body from the inside. Breaths. All right, let's see if we can try that without the wall. How's that sound? So generally you don't have to move your mat. All right, so start kind of a little bit away from the wall. Start in a Tadasana as if your heels were at the wall. Pivot your right foot. You can still use the wall if you're feeling wobbly. Pivot at your right foot. Make sure you've got your blocks handy. So right foot goes to 2 o'clock. Left heel comes in line with right heel. We walk the left foot into the center of the room. Hands come to the hips. We bend the knees. We square our hips. We've got to really push into that right foot to keep that right knee safe. Elbows drop in and towards the wall. Keep a nice bend in the knees as you come forward. Maybe your fingertips or your hands come onto the blocks. Find this opportunity to really lengthen your spine. Lift up into the back of the skull. Make sure you can shake your head for no extension, no tension, no bulging. Then we wouldn't be able to find our neck, so we may want to come up a little higher. Good. Then maybe we can start to straighten out those legs. Maybe we can think about coming forward. Maybe the belly and the ribs touch. Maybe the blocks go lower. Maybe the hands touch. And just spend some time. Don't rush it. Really think as level of pelvis as I can. Really working that left hip flexor back. Knees front to back. And then gradually coming into the full expression of your pose. Breathe into it. So do you feel how this is getting a little bit hunchy there? So straighten out your arms. Yeah. And they can be straightened further back. I would say further back. Yeah. Straighten out and try to get up. You feel the difference there when you straighten that. Perfect. Yeah, nice. Again, you can straighten out the legs as much as you feel you need to. Find what you need to find. Sometimes less is more. Often less is more. Let's go 5 more breaths here. It's an amazing stretch, hey? It really is a goodie. But we did this in the first class at the wall with a strap, right? Do you remember? With one heel at the wall and one foot in a strap, so it's a super safe way to teach it. Bend your knees, zip your belly, take your hands to your thighs, push into those feet, pull those feet apart to come up with the shoulders active and engaged. Step that right foot forward, bend your knees, palms forward, shoulders head back, close your eyes, and breathe. So, same pose here, right? We started with our bent knees, then we brought this guy in, then we straightened this leg. What's it forcing me to do? Keep my back straight. What it's not doing, putting my low back at risk. Right? Bend my knees, it's even better. So you can teach it to anybody, right? And then if they learn that, then anybody can learn to do it in the middle of the room. I have a really nice picture where it's like John and Dad, like it's just the range is incredible and everyone's alignment is perfect for their bodies and it's like, oh, you know, some people are like this and it's beautiful, you know, because they're spot on and they're nailing it. All right, other side. So left foot back a little bit. I like to start with Tadasana just to remind myself to get my feet straight. Left foot pivots to 10 o'clock. Right heel comes in line with left heel. I walk the right foot in to 12 o'clock. Hands on the hips. I square the hips. So right femur pulls back, left femur pulls forward. It's all those same connections we've been working. Elbows draw back. Keep a nice bend in your knees. Pull that right hip flexor back. Think about having coffee on your pelvis. Sometimes it really helps to root the feet and pull the feet apart, like you're stretching the mat. Fingertips on blocks or on the floor. Find the connections, and then lift and lengthen. Too often we go into this hunchy bit. Remember what we said about the hunchy bit and then straightening out our legs? Our low backs get cranky. So bend knees to find the straight back, and then we try to keep a straight back as we straighten the legs. If we decide to go hunchy, we've got to make sure we bend our knees, right? So we've got to keep our low backs happy. So if one gives, if one goes, one has to give, if that makes sense. If you can nail both straight back, straight legs, by all means, go for it. Even though when I say straight legs, I always mean mini micro, bend. And then just making your way into your depth. It's eventually a real down dog arm.
Michelle, is my back straight or hunched?
It's nice. Yeah. You could think about lengthening here. Yeah. So with you, pull the arm bones in just a little bit. So straight arms and then let these, yeah, bingo. And then find a little less pulling the arm bones in. It's micro, right? So push down a little more, just a little more. There you go. Do you feel how that creates less tension here?
Yeah.
So you tend to go too much pulling my arm bones out, and then you hold stuff in your traps, right?
Yeah, I'm much better.
That's nice, hey? Now turn your head for no. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with you, your constant check is, can I shake my head for no? Everything you do, riding your bike, driving your car, when you're working, especially if you're under stress. Some people hold their tension in their hips, some people hold it in their shoulders. This is nice. And this is better. You feel that difference? And yeah. You can look forward and it strengthens, but sometimes it's nice just to get that length at the back of the neck and then feel like there's a wall behind you and you can lift up into the back of the skull. Nice. Really
Cheryl,
lengthening
can I
the
just
chest
ask, when I
armpits.
get to do this, was I pushed down? Is that
So your humerus bone, you need to do more arm push-ups. You need to learn how to move the humerus bone because you move the humerus bone too far out of your shoulder socket. And ask Linda, because you made a big difference for you riding your bike, okay? She doesn't get tension here in her neck anymore riding her bike. And
Okay.
somebody else told me that too. Martha told me that too. It's a real magical little thing moving that humerus bone. I learned that from a physiotherapist.
Okay, so it's pushing down.
Yeah. Pushing down, but not pushing down as hard as you can, 80%. How much should you do in life? You know, 60 to 80%. So I used to teach it draw back 20%, but no one really got it. So that's why I found the push-ups, and then we feel, you know, we just go to that place where we can shake our head for no, because everybody's neck's different, right? And then when you're ready, coming out, bend those knees a little bit if you need to, bring those hands to the hips, pull those feet apart, keep that nice back, keep those nice elbows, step it forward, palms forward, shoulders head back, close your eyes, and breathe. All right, so let's look at that in Warrior 3. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a down dog with our thumb and index fingers at the wall. So we're going to do this. All right, so hockey stick hands, outer wrist a little wider than outer shoulder. We're going to come into our puppy. We're going to come into our down dog. We're going to find our imaginary sticks, and then we're going to straighten as much as is likely. We're going to bring those feet in, and then keeping our hips level, we're just going to bring one leg up. Just to wherever it gets to, keeping the hips level, right? We're not going to let the hip lift. We're going to keep the hips level like they're on a stick. We're going to count, and we're going to lift both sides the same. Shoulders don't change. Be honest with yourself. Ribs don't change. Hips don't change. Do your own counting, because some of us are going to hold for 15 breaths. Some of us are going to hold for 20 breaths. Some of us are going to hold for 5 breaths, right? Once you've done your two sides the same, just take a rest, right? So if you have less juice, do less. We still are going to do them, right? Like we're going to do the warriors, so you want to keep room for that. Juice for that. Does that make sense? Hands at the wall, thumb and index finger at the wall. Outer wrist is a little wider than our outer shoulder. You can start with your feet together, or you can have your feet a hips distance apart, whatever works. Think of your sticks and go into a puppy. So stick at the backs of the knees towards the front of the knees, stick at the hip flexor towards the butt, stick at the ankles towards the heels. Good. And then when you're ready, take the hip flexors as far away from the wrists as you can and come into your down dog. Thinking about the ribs and the belly lifting off the thighs and maintaining a nice straight spine. Here's with shoulders. And so if your feet are apart, it's usually easier at this point to bring them together. And then from there, keep your shoulders, keep your hips, and do a leg lift. You can keep your knee bent or you can straighten your leg. But try not to let the shoulders change. Try not to let the weight in the hands change. Count your breaths. Try and have it even. I'm going to take this hip down right there. so that if whatever leg you're lifting, that hip is pushing into a stick. Once you've done your two sides evenly, you're going to come down and take a child's pose. Any child's pose you like, as long as you're not feeling your knees and as long as your forehead is resting on something.
So if you're doing 5 breaths, you go back and forth?
No, I just want you to do one set. Yeah, so if you're doing 5 breaths, you're running out of juice. So
Yeah.
better to rest, if that makes sense. We still want to do the full pose. Sticking with your mantra, exhaling out what does not serve you. Inhale to draw in the opposite of whatever it is you're letting go. Keeping present with that same mantra with each and every one of your breaths. Allowing your breath to organically grow bigger and deeper. Low back, mid back, upper back, finding that central three-part yoga breath. Let's go 10 more breaths here. When those 10 breaths are complete, hands underneath the shoulders, into tabletop position, knees underneath the hips, tuck your toes, knees and feet are a hips distance apart. Take your hands to your knees, lift your knees, take your hands to your feet, lift your butt. Make sure your feet are still that hips distance apart, bend your knees generously, hands come onto the thighs, and then stack your spine one distal vertebra at a time. Shoulder heads back, armpits forward, turn around to face into the room. All right, So, feet together, hands on the hips, elbows pulled back. Sometimes it's handy to use a stick, but I think we're just going to use our hands on the hips and visualize the stick, just because it's one less moving part. This is a 1 foot balance, and we're tired. So hands on the hips, pull your elbows back. So visualize there's a stick here, visualize there's a stick in your elbows, and you're moving the elbows back. Just watch me for a second, okay? So this foot comes back. The most common mistake is that we boomerang, right? We turn into a boomerang at the hips. That's hard. You're bored. So this is a straight line. The leg lifts and the torso comes down the same amount. So it's not this. Does that make sense? And I'm really lifting up through my ribs, my torso, and I'm keeping my hips level. All right, so when you're ready, hands on the hips, elbows pulled back, shoulder heads back, armpits forward, bend your knees, take your right foot back. You got to stick on your hips, it's a bolt. As your right thigh lifts, your torso comes down the same amount. You keep your back straight and the torso only comes down as much as the thigh lifts. You start with the bent knee, you keep lifting your shoulders, your elbows, and the back of the skull. When you arrive at your spot, you can straighten out your legs. Think about that right hip flexor, right hip pushing into an imaginary table. Good. Feel the shoulders. If one shoulder is higher, then it means the whole hip and that whole right side has to come down. We want to stay square. Try not to boomerang if you can help it. And then to come out of it, you keep that same straight back, you bend the left knee, and you just pivot on the hips. Back into Tadasana, right? So all this work is amazing for the thyroid, it's amazing for our metabolism. Breathing, it's also good for the heart. You feel how you're getting that heart pumping, right? So we're flushing out our hearts. So here we slow down our heart rate. How do we slow down our heart rate? By slowing down our breath. We're having a heart attack, or we ran too hard. We slow it down by just finding our 3-part yoga breath up and down the spine, breathing in and out through the nose. So we're sending a message directly to our brain. Don't worry, brain, you're getting oxygen. Then the brain relaxes. Then the heart rate slows. When you feel like your heart rate is slowed, hands on the hips, elbows pull back, shoulders pull back, bend your knees, take that left foot back. Think about a stick or a bolt at the hips, and come down on that stick from your thigh to your belly is level, so we're not boomeranging at the hips. Right? And we're lifting our ribs, we're lifting our shoulders, we're lifting our heads, we're lifting our elbows to keep ourselves from boomeranging. Once we arrive, we can straighten the legs, which means keeping a little micro bend in the standing leg. That's what I mean every time I say straighten, I always mean save me. Stick in the backs of the elbows, lift the elbows. Armpits forward, shoulder heads move up towards the sky. Watch the hip. Don't let that left hip get higher than the right. Don't let the left shoulder get higher than the right. And then to come out of it, you're just going to bend your knee. You're going to pivot at that hip. Everything else stays like a board. And into Tadasana. What's this called? Breath. So if that felt fun and you want to try something different, you could do different arms. You could bring your arms up like so. You could find your arms like this if your shoulders allowed it. You could reach behind you, and when you do the right side, right hand grabs left elbow. When you do the left side, left hand grabs right elbow. You could bring your hands in Namaskara and really find the activity of the arms. So all are good, right? Or you could just keep your hands on your hips, whatever works. Fix your gaze on one point. Armpits move forward, bend your knees, take your right foot back. Zip your belly, move the flesh of the butt away from the low back, and then pivot at the hips. Keep the shoulders level, keep the hips level, keep your gaze on one fixed point. When you arrive at your deepest, then straighten out the legs. But do your best not to boomerang, do your best not to lose the levelness. Good, ears with shoulders. All those same connections that we've learned today. Mind, body's there, you're using them. Let's see if we've got 5 more breaths. You got this. Also very good for our knees. And then once those 5 breaths are complete, I like to generously bend my standing leg so that there's no thinking it might want to become anything but a hinge. Back in. If you want to do a Tadasana, release the hands, do so. Breathing. And then when you're ready, maybe left elbow grabs right, maybe the hands go back into Namaskara, maybe you do hands on the hips, but you find the elbows, you find the shoulders, you make sure you can shake your head for no, you bend your knees, you're gonna root the right foot, you're gonna take the left foot back, and then you just pivot at the hips. Good. I'm just finding it. And then when you arrive, lengthen away from the pelvis. So the spine lengthens forward, the leg lengthens back. Level, level, level. Don't let that right hip lift. We all have our tendencies. It's sciatic. Does it come this way? Yeah. Just an indicator that you want to work on it. Is it sharp pain? It's just tight. Yeah.
It's not on this side as much.
Yeah. And you're right. Which leg did you have surgery? My brain's fried right now. But
That was most recent.
more recent. And you feel it more on the right side?
Like this.
Yeah. Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably tighter on this side because this leg's been compensating, would be my guess, but it's anybody's game, right?
That's crazy.
Good to know though.
Not
Yeah. And then bending to come out, Tadasana. So a good one to practice, but short holds and work your way up. Intense leg stretches, but you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really finding those connections, finding the pelvis.
Strengthening the side.
Yeah. We got lots of flossing stuff that we can do for that too. Remind me, leg flossing. All right, so you're gonna do the last set on your own, and if you wanted to, it could look like any variation of bend that knee and come into it from your pyramid pose if you wanted to, right? You could do this, you could do this, you could do this. So just think pyramid, right? So whatever pyramid you want to do, right? You've got your arms with your ears, right? And then you can come up, and then you got to really find the bend, and then you really connect to go from pyramid into your warrior. That makes sense? Give it a go. Remember, bent knees are nice. So you could start right foot back, left foot forward, hands on the hips, find the bent knees, square the hips. First, find your pyramid. For most of us, we'll want to find a straight back pyramid, right? And then we'll bend the knee and we'll step forward and the leg won't lift as much as I had it, right? Some of us can go deeper and find it. Just have a little play. One leads into the other eventually. That generous bend in the front knee really helps me. So now square off those hips before you come in. Yep, there you go. One more time, square them. So left hip flexor stick moves back, Lisa. That's good. And hold it as long as you want to hold it. It's a tricky one to pop in and out of, right? But it's fun. Challenging. And then when you're done, a little Tadasana in between, trying to get a good gauge of how long you did it, and then have a little play on the other side. Very nice. Inner thighs, drop the block, Lisa, just a little bit. Does that make sense? Drop the block, yeah. Yeah, because you know how to, yeah. So with you, you've got to really strengthen these muscles. So it's a lot of inner thigh drops the block. Not to the point where it hurts the knees, it's like little bits, right? But just enough so we're stabilizing them. Yeah, because you're getting the rotation, you're nailing the rotation. Now it's just finding the balance here. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sure, whatever. I like this variation, but you have to have really open shoulders to do it. But this is nice. Yeah, for sure. Then you hook the thumbs and you can go, right? Yeah. Once you've done your two sides, let's find a Tadasana. Then just hanging out. For me, I feel like the standing poses are almost like plugging into an electrical socket. I don't know if anyone else feels like kind of like you feel your body from the inside. It's really good for opening up the natties, right? And yoga group, there's 80,000 natties, which are super similar to the idea of meridians, and they get stuck when our body gets stuck, and I just find the standing poses just get that shit moving, right? So you're just like, woo, right? So it's a great practice. Does anybody have any questions about that? We're good with that? Okay, so let's review the Kapalabhati that we did this morning. So I like to sit on my shins for Kapalabhati because traditionally in our lineage we practice it first thing in the morning before we put anything into our bodies. So if you feel like you need height to sit, grab height to sit. You can sit cross-legged, absolutely. Grab what you need. What's that?
Sorry, there's none left.
Oh, there's none left.
Sorry.
I bought another one
There's a whole
here.
bunch of this grass.
Yeah, and there's one here. I'll come around with that one in just a two. All right, so can anybody tell me when you do not do Kapalabhati?
When you're pregnant.
When you're pregnant, when you have your period,
Sinus infection.
sinus infection, diarrhea or vomiting.
And not eating heavy within at least 2 hours.
Yes. So the reason we do it first thing in the morning is ideally we're completely empty, and then it just gets things really moving. It doesn't matter as much when we're new to it, but when we get really good at it, it would really make you feel like shit. Like it would just be gross. You'd feel really sick. Okay, I think we covered all of those. What's it good for? Sinuses, it's amazing. Allergies. Digestion.
Chronic constipation.
Exactly. That's my usual number one go-to with people that have that. Anything sinusy, blocked ears, blocked nose, like we said. If you feel gooky in your eyes, like allergy season, water in the ears, it'll clear that. It's in our world, our lineage, we're overly safety, but I think that's okay. It's a prereq to doing the neti pot so that we don't get water stuck in our nose from the neti pot. We use it as a kriya, so it's as a cleansing technique as opposed to a pranayama. Great for clarity of thought, really gets the energy moving. So it's like an espresso, it just boom, right? Gets you going. All right. So we'll get started. Hands on the thighs, shoulders back. I like to think of pinch my Arasana arms, so I've got the ability to move my neck, but my arms are really solid so that I don't start to do this, right? Because it gets the energy moving up the spine, and it's easier to move the energy if the spine is straight. It's also better for our necks, our backs, and our shoulders if we're working a straight spine. By kicking the feet down into the floor, you're going to be able to sit longer. And sometimes it's nice to lift the skin of the knees and the shins, and it just makes it more comfortable. But we never sit through any pain ever in yoga. All right, we're going to close our eyes. Remember, we count with the left hand. And because we're kind of new to this, we're going to do 4 rounds of 40. It's a big inhale, a big exhale, another big inhale, and then we exhale to draw the belly back. We don't think about the inhale, but it does happen. So we're not retaining our breath. We're breathing between each one, but the forks exhale creates a vacuum inhale, so we don't have to think about the inhale. There should be no cramping. There should be no little bubbles that start to float. There should be no feelings of anxiousness physically or mentally. If that happens, you just stop. You rest, you join in on the next round, and you do a little less. You try a little less hard. So when you're ready, we can do it together. Big inhale, big exhale, big inhale. Draw the belly back as you exhale through the nose. Once you're 40 or done, you bend your index finger to indicate that you've done 1 round. You may not need it now, it's pretty easy to count to 44 times, but once you're counting to 108 times, you're going to want to have that habit. I'm coming around with tissues. If you're clearing your sinuses, it's nice to have a tissue. We try to move as little as possible because we're going to, this is designed to get the energy moving up the spine. We want to harness that energy, and the less we move, the more likely we're going to get the effects of that. But if you have to move, move, and we never sit through pain. So if you have to change your seat, you change your seat. It's a minute between sets. And then when you're ready, we're going to come into our second set. Big inhale, big exhale, big inhale, exhale to draw the belly back. Once we've done our 40, we bend the middle finger to indicate we've done our second round, and we just sit quietly, as still as we can be. So in our lineage, we try and keep an even beat, so we're not going slow and speeding up. And then once we're really good at doing a slow, even beat at 100, then gradually, one day, we start to speed it up. That sometimes causes tension mentally and physically, so it's better just to be slow and steady and gradually get there with time. For best results, we practice 3 days a week. So if any of those things on the checklist were something that you need to work on, then 3 days a week is the magic number. Let's come into our third round. Big inhale, big exhale. Inhale to fill, exhale to draw the belly back. Once you've done your 40, you're going to bend your ring finger to remind yourself that you've done 3 rounds, and then you're just going to sit quietly for 1 minute, as still as you can be. If you need to adjust, you adjust, no pain. And coming into our 4th round, big inhale, big exhale, big inhale. And just kind of enjoy the little buzzy feeling, that little mini party that your cells are having. And slowly opening up your eyes. So you either take your feet out to the side or you can roll over your toes and just open up the backs of the knees. Let your arms be back, let your shoulders be relaxed, and let's just flex and point a little bit. So does anybody have any questions about that? We're all feeling really comfortable. Good. We'll be working on that in class for the next month, so that'll be nice. And then some circles. Try to keep your knees pointing up towards the sky. So my personal home practice, I wake up in the morning when I don't have children. I do that, and then I do my seated practice. It's just a nice little warm up for the knees and the ankles before you sit cross-legged, change direction. Some people do that in half lotus or lotus too, whatever works. I need to warm up. Heidi's getting really good at copying me doing it. That's really cute.
Breathing.
This is really funny. I'm sitting on her knees. It's really cute. We're starting a family class. Flex your feet, curl your toes, point your toes, flip your toes. Flex.
That's a great
curl,
picture.
point,
And you're at it for the family practice.
keep going. Yeah, it's cute, hey? So she's been wanting to do a yoga. She loves coming to the studio. So I said, okay, well, she's going to help me teach this class.
Oh,
She's so excited. It's so funny. She's invited all her friends.
Oh my God.
I have one more spot left. If anybody knows anybody, it's Wednesdays at 3:30.
Can I bring Margaret?
Yes, you could. And then just bend your knees. We did a lot of straight back stuff, so let's come over and just let our backs kind of curve. If you want to calm your parasympathetic nervous system, we don't want to put weight in our heels if we were pregnant, but we would have done the Kapalabhati if we were pregnant anyway. So this is a nice option if we're having a hard time getting there, or even like, somewhere in between here. 1 block, 2 blocks, no blocks. I like the elbow one too, where I put my elbows on my inner heels. That one's really nice. Or sometimes the head just fits. And just let your back be a little curved, let your shoulders relax. And just breathe into your back body. Exhale, feel the back gently contracting. So keeping in mind, workshops are very, very different than a normal practice. A normal practice is a little bit more well-rounded. With workshops, we're trying to learn very, very specific things. So it's quite deep. So it's definitely a great day to just take it super easy, have a hot bath with Epsom salts, drink lots of water, herbal tea, because we did quite a lot of deep hip work, and that's, kind of an emotional release for some people. A lot of us hold our emotional stuff in our hips, that we just want to be mindful and kind of own our stuff, and just observe if we're being overly emotional or cranky or whatever. Notice if things are irritating us, and then really making a conscious effort not to react, but leave it, right? Just don't go picking fights today because you will be in the wrong. But the beauty about opening up our hips and releasing those emotional tensions that build up and then eventually explode in the worst possible moment is we're letting it go, but then we're conscious, right? If we let it go and then we drank a bottle of scotch, we would be unconscious and then we'd probably be a bit of a jerk, if that makes sense. 1 glass of wine or 2 is great, but just keep in control of yourself. But the beauty of it out is it's not stuck in. When it's stuck in, it can lead to pain. It can lead to, saying stuff that you don't want to say when you shouldn't say it. Road rage, whatever. But you don't want to take out the garbage and throw it all over your partner's yard. You want to take it out, put it in the garbage bin. Neat and tidy. That's my due diligence. And then tomorrow, if you are feeling it, just kind of doing a little repeat of what you did will help to release it. A little bit of hamstring stretching, maybe some number 4 pose or thread the needle. Like I said, we work a little harder in the workshops on very specific things. And tomorrow you'll probably feel it a little bit, and you can use that feeling to help you memorize whatever it is that you learned today. go 10 more breaths here. When those 10 breaths are complete, coming up, putting on any sweaters or socks that you might need. Draw those knees together. Let's come onto our backs and give those legs a little hug. You could do circles if you wanted to. You could do wide kneed circles if you feel like your back needs more of a release. Do whatever you need to do to feel like you're ready to come into Shavasana. And in Shavasana, if you want a bolster underneath your knees, just keep the soles of the feet on the floor, and I'll put some bolsters underneath your knees. If you want a blanket, you can put your right hand on your belly. If you want a neck bolster, you can put your left hand on your belly, and I'll give you something that kind of resembles a neck bolster until I can figure out a way to cram neck bolsters into the studio. It's my goal by Christmas. And then close your eyes, be as still as you can be.